Hello and welcome to Sutton Impact Family Style episode 302. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill, and I'm calling in from Phoenix. I'm going to the Grizzlies game here in a little bit to see Ja. So I'm excited about that. I'll talk about that next week on the show.
Do they have any celebrities?
I actually have gone to two NBA games in 48 hours.
If you sit close enough to the court, you can try to pull a Shannon Sharp, right?
We are sitting first row, feet on the floor.
Well, did you see Shannon Sharp get into it with the Grizzlies?
Yeah, I did.
You can be Shannon Sharp, Dad.
Shannon Sharp, and then T's dad is always there.
Yeah.
Ja's dad, T. Yeah, he's always there.
Yeah.
And then they always kiss and make up at the end, so.
Yeah. And LeBron came to Shannon Sharp's defense. I mean, he's a passionate fan, which on some level you got to like, right?
Yeah.
Like Shannon Sharp is at the game because I think he loves watching basketball, as opposed to, some of the celebrities in LA that go to be seen. So
He looked a little bigger than I remembered him.
Shannon Sharp's a big dude.
Yeah, he is a big dude, but he looked bigger than I remembered him.
Yeah. Well,
Let's start. Let's start with yesterday, with the NFL games.
I think somewhat similar for both losing fan bases, right? Your team outperformed themselves this year. You got a pretty young core, and your arrow's probably pointed up if you're both those teams, right?
I would say so.
If I'm the Giants, I have a Giants fan in my
I
life.
really expected the Giant Philadelphia game to be better.
Yeah. It looked like Alabama or Georgia TCU. Like the Eagles just looked like they were much better at every position, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looked like, all the stuff we talked about, the reclamation of Daniel Jones, and he's going to get a big contract. I don't know now. I mean, he looked like regular Daniel Jones after yesterday.
Yeah, I have a Giants fan in my life. My friend Tarek, who I used to be in acting class with, and I asked him, I was like, as a Giants fan, what do you do right now? He's like, I don't know, because you got Hodgins, who looks like you probably could re-sign pretty cheap. Then you got Saquon Barkley, who would be on his third contract, right?
Yeah.
And that's deadly for a running back, even though we played really well this year. And then you got Daniel Jones, and he's probably better than anything you can probably go get, right?
And I would say, the way they were talking yesterday, I agreed with it, is you'd like to see one more year before you commit big money to them.
Yeah. So you franchise him, you think, if you're in charge of that organization?
Well, you got to pay big money for franchise.
You do, but I think you might be paying him big money regardless. In a franchise tag.
I don't know what I do. I'm undecided too. I don't know. I really don't know.
I mean, his agent's probably going to want not just the bag, but want some sort of 120 for 4 years or something, right? You think?
I would think so. Yeah, I would think he'd want north of. I know he'd want north of $20 million a year.
Right, and the franchise tag I think is 28 or 29 to franchise him for the year. So I kind of feel like, maybe do like the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, franchise him and see if the growth continues under Dayball, and because I'd be nervous about giving him a long-term commitment.
I really am.
I mean, he's got a cool nickname. He played really well all year long until they ran into the Eagles. But again, Eagles were the best record in football, the best team in the NFC all year, and they looked like it at home in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that team just has, you got a good.
It'll be hard to beat next week.
You got a good offensive line. You got a good defensive line. You have almost two number one receivers between Brown and Smith. You got talent at tight end, talent at running back. You have playmakers all over the defense. Like, it's a really good coach team. Like, it's a good team. And they have a top 10 or top 12 pick this year from another trade. So they can get even better.
Yeah, I think, I think the 49ers and the Eagles will be a great game if it's the 49ers and the Eagles.
Yeah.
I think if it's Dallas and the Eagles, I think they might crush Dallas.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Let's talk about Jacksonville.
Okay, let's talk about Jacksonville.
I think they showed out well.
I think they did too.
Although I gotta tell you, I don't see how Travis Kelce can always be that open.
It's ridiculous, right?
It's where it's going.
Yeah, he's Patrick Mahomes.
You absolutely know.
Because he had 14 for 98 and 2 touchdowns yesterday, and he dropped 3 other passes, or had 3 other passes. I don't know what they're officially ruled as, but come pretty close to his hands. And like you said, he was literally wide open constantly. And he doesn't seem like he's that fast or that quick. Like you watch the replay and you're like, what are you doing?
He's usually always releasing off a block.
Yeah.
On a big play. Sometimes he just lines up and he's just going after a pass. But a lot of the big plays, he was lined up to block. And then he slipped off and there was nobody near him.
Now, I know he's probably, most teams probably can't cover him one-on-one. But I'd want to play like the NBA or NFL equivalent of boxing one. And whether it's a safety or a linebacker, I'm like, you're with Travis Kelce every play, no matter what.
Yeah.
Don't fall off him. Don't shift off him. Don't leave him alone. If he beats you one on,
you've got to put somebody on him and not let him off the line.
Yeah, I was like, if you want to, if he beats you man to man, 50-50 balls, I can live with that. But I can't live with him getting wide open every play.
Oh God.
Because Patrick Mahomes will find you.
And then they were coming back, and that was a huge, huge fumble.
Yeah.
They could have taken the lead on that drive.
Yeah. And I guess while we're talking Chiefs, a shout out to Chad Henne.
Yeah, very good 98-yard drive.
You come in for, yeah.
Impressive.
Because you felt like that was the shift, the big turn in the game. And all of a sudden, your backup quarterback comes in, 98 yards later, you're a touchdown. It's just, that rarely happens with your starter. So, and then I guess Patrick.
Two big turnovers in the fourth quarter for Jacksonville. Otherwise, it's hard to say. They really had played well, except for regarding Travis Kelce.
And while I said I like where the Giants are at, I love if I'm a Jacksonville fan. I feel like Jacksonville's right there with Detroit, where I think
those are two really up-and-coming teams.
I've got a great coach. I think I've got my quarterback of the future, or certainly a quarterback I can win with, a lot of young talent. And if I'm Jacksonville, I need to, I know DeAndre Hopkins is on the market. I think they need a number one wide receiver, whether it's a tight end or wide receiver. They need somebody that's like, not Christian Kirk or Zay Jones. No offense to either one of those guys. They're good players. But, I think Trevor Lawrence needs his, Jamar Chase.
No, you need a go-to guy that's going to really open up some for everybody else on the team.
Yeah. But, yeah, like I said, if I'm Jacksonville, I feel pretty good about myself.
Yeah, I would too.
You won the division. You came back after winning 2 games last year with a terrible coach. Your number 1 overall pick, Trevor Lawrence, is starting to look like the guy that you drafted. And again, like you said, arrow pointing up. I think they're already the division favorites next year for their...
Oh, I would have to think so, yeah. You could use a nice tight end, too.
Yeah. Like I said, whether it's like I realize how rare they are because, Kyle Pitts has come out and done literally nothing. But, whether it's your Travis Kelce type, like your number 1 tight end wide receiver, or, just a great wide receiver out there that's your guy that takes up double teams, or the guy that you go to when you I think that's what they need.
Yeah. But kudos to that. Now, the Bengals-Bills, a lot was made out of the fact that the Bengals are missing 3 of their top 5 offensive linemen. Mm-hmm. And they are running through Buffalo like a hot knife through butter.
Yeah. They're carving them up.
I don't understand. I don't understand it.
No.
And you're in Buffalo and you're in a snowstorm. And Joe Burrow looks like he's done this his whole life.
Joe Burrow is a very, very good player. He just...
as good as I thought Joe Allen was, he's not as good as Joe Burrow.
He's not, no. Josh Allen is like... when you look at the 3 quarterbacks we're probably looking at moving forward in the AFC with your Burrow, Mahomes, and Josh Allen. Josh Allen is probably the physical one you would be like, oh, this is the guy, right? But... it's Burrow and Mahomes, I think, clearly, in that class by themselves in the AFC.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a solid number 3, but I think there's a big gap between 2 and 3.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, he's got 2 number 1 wide receivers. Because T. Higgins is awesome. And obviously Jamar Chase can ball. Joe Mixon's really good. They got a number of tight ends, and they've made some bonehead plays, and it hasn't even stopped them,
Yeah.
Some easy drops by Irving and some other guys where it hit him in the hands on, what should have been either a first down or make it a short third down. And
Buffalo's not doing good coming up and tackling these guys.
No. And I know Cincinnati's also a northern city, but you figure, this isn't like Miami's up there in the snow
No.
feeling the cold. I mean, it's another cold weather team. It's exciting
Yeah,
though.
they look really good. And we said a while back that I think I said I like their chances.
I mean, as bad as my Saints pick look, my Bengals pick looking pretty decent.
Yes, your Bengals pick is looking really decent after that really horrendous start. I mean, they've been awesome.
Yeah. Well, the Steelers ended up 9-8, so that loss looks less bad now, right?
Yeah, and they could have beat them the second time.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I think on the other side, I mean, my only hesitation for picking the 49ers on any game is Brock Purdy, and I'm not sure when that becomes stupid to say that, right?
Yeah, but this is, as more and more chips are on the table, you would expect them to have some kind of a letdown.
You have assumed so, because, I know that people like to point out Tom Brady fell to the 6th round, but it's pretty rare that a quarterback drafted that late in the game becomes, what he is today, or he's been so far this season. But again, you get it to Ayuk, you get it to Kittle, you get it to Mitchell, McCaffrey, Debo Samuel. Like, you just got to gift them the ball, right? Get it near him.
Big pass interference play on the Bills on the 2-yard line.
Well, there you go.
This one could be history. At 31, if it's 31-10, it's history.
Yeah, I think it might be history. That's exciting, though.
Yeah. Surprising, but exciting.
Very much so.
Well, I saw the Magic play the Hornets. The Pelicans.
They won that one, right?
Zion was there in street clothes. He looked enormous in street clothes.
He's a big fella. He's thick.
He's a large child, yes. But, McCollum, I really appreciate McCollum.
He's very, very good. Very solid.
He's very, very good. And very smooth and very, not flashy. Just solid. And then this guy they have from Texas, Jackson, is also really, really good.
Yeah, McCollum also doesn't get credit for being one of the few, I know he's not like A-list star in the NBA, but he can get you 30 if he knew to get 30. And he doesn't seem to complain when there's 3 or 4 games in a row where he's getting 18.
No.
He's got that good team mentality thing where it's like, whatever the team needs to win, I'm here to help you win. So I like that about him.
The Magic won, and 2 stars were Wagner,
and Paolo,
and Bol.
Oh yeah, and Paolo looked good all the time too.
Yeah, he didn't play much. He didn't play much second half at all.
Huh. He still looks great.
It was really surprising. Yeah. He started off, and it was just one of those. The Magic coach must have played everybody on the team before he agreed. Before he figured out who he was going to play down the stretch. And Paulo did not play down the stretch. He didn't play at all, hardly at all in the second quarter, second half. And Bol even made Sports Center.
I saw that.
Did you see that? No, that was a Euro step.
Yeah, that was something for sure. But
when you're that big, your steps are going to be big.
Yeah. But if you're the Magic, again, between Paolo, who is pretty good this year, and Wagner, and then guys like Bol, you're in a good spot,
Yeah, they look as good as I've seen them look in the last 4 years.
And like I said, I think you have 2 legitimate building blocks moving forward. And that's something they haven't had since Dwight Howard.
Yeah, and Cole Anthony played really well too.
Yeah. That's where they're weakest. They need a guard, like a consistent, I'm the guard, not, I think Cole Anthony can look good from time to time. Markelle Fultz looks good from time to time. A lot of the guys on the team can, who's the kid they had up against Gonzaga too?
Oh, Suggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he would be better. No. I thought he was going to be like just a solid, night in, night out leader of your court, but he's just not.
No. So my takeaways from the game were that the Magic coach played everybody on the team, which I hadn't seen that in a long time.
No.
You played that many guys. And my other takeaway was they must have the largest coaching and support staff I've ever seen. 11 guys.
That's it. Yeah. But they're trying to pull it together, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, I think their arrow's pointing up.
Oh, no question.
And again, this is a really nice draft coming out too. So I mean, this could be a nice time for them to step in and really, really make a move in the East, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, the Celtics are in first place in the East, and they look fantastic. And they have two young players, and just
But Marcus Smart went down with a really bad ankle injury.
yeah. But I think they can withstand that. They have a 4.5 game lead over Philly and a 5.5 game lead over Milwaukee, and the Nets are So I think they can. They're a deep team too. They're really really good.
Yeah, they are. Russ had a nice game the other night. 29 points off the bench.
Yeah. But where do they sit right now?
Oh, they still suck.
Yeah. But it seems like, I've heard less whining from LeBron about how they need to do something. And it seems like everybody is like, there's nobody we can get for 27 and 29 picks that's going to be worth to save our season.
No.
Especially with Anthony Davis once again missing way too much time. It just, and like if you were
I think they're kind of locked. They're kind of locked in. They're not able to do much. They're locked in.
Yeah.
And they might as well just ride it out and see what Anthony Davis does and see if you can get anything for him in the offseason. I don't know.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. Like I'd love to, talk to some GMs and find out what his value would be. Because on the one hand, Rudy Gobert went for 5 first-round picks and Jared Vanderbilt, which seems ridiculous. But he plays every night,
Yeah. I mean, that was... Well, here's an interesting debate we can have.
Okay.
Which team overpaid the most? The Rudy Gobert trade or the Russ Wilson trade?
Ooh. I think ultimately, based on just the way the NFL works, I got to go Rudy Gobert. You gave up a solid player in Vanderbilt and 5 first-round picks for a 32-year-old center when your best player is far from being ready to lead your team. Like he and Anthony Edwards are not on the same timeline. Forget the fact that he's been played off the court in the last 4 or 5 playoffs. He's such a liability on offense, and you can exploit him a little bit more on defense than you used to. Given some of the new rules and the way things work. And then, like I said, I think if you're Minnesota, Anthony Edwards is, as much as you want Karl Anthony Towns to be the guy, Anthony Edwards is the closest thing you guys have to a guy. And he's either 19 or 20 this year. So I think he's 3 or 4 years from being, contender playoff ready. Like you saw with Tatum, right? Tatum now looks like an MVP at 26. And I think you gave up all those picks and everything else, and then you're just in a no man's land. Whereas Russ, I mean, you bring Sean Payton into Denver, who knows?
Yeah, we'll have to see.
And I guess the Russ trade is pretty much as bad as that trade is. And I know financially they're stuck for the next 3 seasons. After this year, you don't owe them any more picks, right?
I don't know.
I think it's the 1st and 2nd this year, or the 1st and 4th this year, whatever it is, and then you're out. Whereas Minnesota's given up every other pick for the next decade for Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
And they're sitting right now at 26 and 26 in the 7th spot, which is not bad for them, right? I mean, you have to assume that Phoenix and Golden State will probably overtake them. But
you would think.
But then, like I said, if you're Minnesota, if you were, if last year you were the Memphis Grizzlies or even this year's Sacramento Kings, and you're like, we're 1 player away, but you're way further than 1 player away. So
yeah, that was the kind of, I think since they made the playoffs last year, and they were excited about the nucleus they had, I think they did think they were 1 or maybe 2 pieces away, and maybe they were. It just that wasn't the piece.
No. And I think the other thing that hurts you a little bit more is I don't think the Denver Broncos have that much trouble bringing free agents into Denver to play in Mile High Stadium. Whereas I think if you're Minnesota, getting free agents to come is really difficult. And the way you really get to build that team is through the draft. Now you've handicapped yourself for the next decade on that front, you know?
Yeah.
Like people aren't, I mean, I don't see Minnesota as a destination for free agency for a number of reasons.
No, I don't either.
So I think that's why you got to, worry more about your trade. And apparently they're also only 2 games up on the Jazz, or half a game up on the Jazz. But the Jazz, who own all their picks, apparently are starting their fire sale. And it's everybody but Lauri Markkanen and I forget that other guy's name.
The finisher.
Yeah.
That's a good nickname.
He's really good this year. He's an all-star. Like he's all-star level play right now. Which, I mean, people have been saying, like, since he came in the league, he's got to get up in the right situation. And this seems to be it, right?
I think so. I mean, he's been on SportsCenter a lot.
Well, why don't we have some positive trade talk for a second, Dad?
Okay, what do you got?
Remember last year when everybody was all upset about Halliburton to the Pacers and Sabonis to the Kings?
Yeah.
And they thought that was a big overpay by the Kings? And obviously, Halliburton looks like an all-star in Indiana. He seems like a guy that wants to stay in Indiana, which is a double win for them. But the Kings are in 3rd place, and Sabonis is playing like an all-star too. Yeah. So it looks like maybe...
I've always liked Sabonis.
Yeah. So it looks like that might be one of those trades that really worked out great for both teams.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's one of those things on the question that was Buddy Hield part of that trade too?
Buddy Hield was also part of that trade.
Yeah.
But I know that Buddy Hield was not the most popular teammate in Sacramento.
No.
And I don't think it's... I think with Buddy, he's a very competitive guy. And I think, I think you want your players to believe they're great. But you need them not to force their greatness when they're not great. And I think that's part of Buddy Hield's issue. Is Buddy Hield doesn't want to play Buddy Hield's role.
Buddy Hield's one-dimensional. He's not...
Yeah.
He's a shooter.
But I think, you were a star in high school. You were a star at Oklahoma. You were a star in the tournament. And I think you still view yourself as a star. And some guys can never get past that, I'm a star phase. And I think that's part of, what makes Buddy Hield sort of a tough player to evaluate. Whether you have him on your team or you look about bringing him in. Because you think you're bringing in, maybe a top 3 guy, maybe a top 4 guy. Maybe ultimately a 6th man, and Buddy Hield views himself as a number 1.
Right.
Which, again, you definitely want, but there's that fine line between, I don't know how you describe that, but there's a fine line between believing you're great and not accepting your role.
Well, they were doing, I was watching the Talking Heads last week, and they were breaking down, when Atlanta was playing Dallas, they were going back and revisiting that trade.
Oh, okay.
And so, Trae Young has been an all-star. And I mean, he's, he scores a lot of points, but he's not Luka.
No. Not even close. And who's
Luka looking like a 275-pound Larry Bird?
Yeah. Yeah, I still feel like Luka's getting the sweet tea in,
And former Steeler Mike Hilton puts a big hit on Josh Allen, causes a fumble, Bengals recover.
We loved Mike Hilton.
We did love Mike Hilton.
He was one of those, undersized. You look at him on paper, he doesn't seem to fit, but he just made play after play after play. And I don't know how you sometimes you can't quantify that with statistics.
Yeah.
Because statistics doesn't believe in clutchness, so... Despite the fact that I am a firm believer that clutchness exists. And big playability, whatever that would be called.
Let's see else I want to comment on. Kansas losing 2 games in a row at home.
Yeah.
Shocker. And I think my business story of the week has to be the huge PR campaign and publicity that Live Golf tried to get for signing a TV deal with the CW. I mean, come on, the CW? And you were acting like it was with CBS.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just not, somebody tried to point out to me that it's like looking for, during March Madness, you got to find True TV.
Right.
But that's only for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
This is for a year.
Yeah.
And I just don't see, look at the shows on the CW.
No, it's not golf. Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me that's where you're going to put and I know they didn't get any money for it. They got a house, they got a place to live, and they're going to have to sell a bunch of ads and drive a bunch of revenue, and then they're going to split the revenue. So they're not paying for it, but they're not getting paid.
No, and then when you look at obviously everybody wants live sports because live sports are one of the few must-watch in-person live things. And YouTube TV didn't want them, Amazon didn't want them, Apple didn't want them, and the traditional networks didn't want them. So,
yeah.
I mean, the USFL has a big TV deal.
Much better than Live.
Yeah, it's like the USFL is a much better TV deal than Live, and USFL has gone under twice already, I think. And
working on three.
I was like, I don't know if it's going to be long before it's a third time because, no offense to the USFL, but it's a tough sell.
Now, but I will be rooting for the San Antonio Brahmas with Hines Ward. Or is that the XFL?
I think that's the XFL.
All right, I'm rooting for that. Well, they're both starting off. It's going to be oversaturation and dilute. Two leagues dilutes too much talent.
Yeah, I was saying that I wanted to find a team, and then I was told that not only does New Orleans have a team in the USFL, but they led the league in passing last year. So I was like, well, that's, I'll follow one local team for a while. See how that goes.
What's the New Orleans team called?
I think it's the Breakers. But again,
yeah, I think you're right. Why, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Because that seems more like a Los Angeles, coastal city kind of thing.
Or San Diego or somebody, right? Oh, they ruled it wasn't a fumble.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that feels much more like a surfy sort of,
Yeah, San Diego Breakers, Jersey City Breakers, something like that. Somebody with a coast.
Because when you think New Orleans, you think breakers, you think levees and walls and flooding and death. So I don't think that's the best.
No, I think New Orleans should be Voodoo.
Yeah, I was like, Voodoo is there every single time. You got cool logos. You stick with the Mardi Gras colors. Like, it's all right there for the taking.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, it seems too easy. Maybe that was the problem. But
I don't know.
Yeah, what can you do?
Sell more merch with Voodoo.
I think, without a doubt. And you'd sell more merch nationally with Voodoo.
Yeah, people get your attention.
Because again, you can sell little voodoo dolls, have cool kinds of skull logos, wearing hats. Like you're getting people that don't even like your sport that want to wear your merch, which I think is the goal of anybody making merch for a sport.
Where are they playing? Are they playing out at Tulane Stadium?
I think so.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And it says officially Mahomes has the high ankle sprain going into next week too. I don't know if we mentioned that, but that injury looked brutal yesterday, but it turned out not to be that bad.
No, I mean, he was limping and playing on one foot when he was handing off.
Yeah, and he did not want to leave. I mean, I did want to give a special shout out to the Chiefs coaching staff, though, for forcing him, being like, you can either go back in the locker room or you're never getting back in the game. And then once we found out the x-rays were negative and it's just a matter of playing through the pain of an ankle sprain, like, it's nice that they, seemingly put a player's health in front of winning.
Yeah.
Which we don't see very often. And then obviously special shout out to Harmon for, Hamlin, for being at the game today. Hyping up the Bills. Yeah. That was a very nice moment, or moments that we got to see. So
very much. You got any food or entertainment?
Well, we finished Three Pines. It was very exciting. Really liked it.
Good. I knew you would. That 2-story arc is really a nice way to go because you have that resolution combined with the ongoing story for the other ones.
I would also recommend, if you have Peacock or some access to NBC programming, Paul T. Goldman. It's a 6-part show.
What's it called?
Paul T. Goldman.
Okay.
It's one of those. I want to sell it, but obviously not give anything away. But it's produced by Seth Rogen. And it's about a guy who writes a book about his wife, and he just sort of goes in over his head as to what he thinks why his wife was a terrible person. And he gets people to make a movie about him, and he plays himself, and it just goes over and over again. And it's got a nice conclusion. And you're either, you're sort of laughing mostly at him, but it's still enjoyable, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And as I told you, just because I think it did really well, it got 10 million viewers on its first thing, and it maintained 7 for episode 2. I did watch Night Court, the reboot.
And I meant to watch that. I'll go back and watch it on demand.
And I would say if you're a fan of classic sitcoms, you'll probably enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's got the
it was awesome in the original.
And you
look like you're still playing the exact same character, the exact same way.
Exactly. And I know that somebody said with the success of this, why is everybody not on the phone to Ted Danson? And he still owns the bar. He doesn't bartend anymore. He just kind of hangs out from time to time and hangs out in his office and just cheers too. Re-cheers, more cheers. It's what the people want, right?
Yep.
It's people they know and shows they like.
Just held the Bills on fourth down, turning the ball over with a 17-point lead with 7 minutes left. It's over.
Yeah. So we're going to get Bengals in Kansas City next week. Burrow, Mahomes.
I think that's... To me, you can't ask for a better matchup.
No. And I also was thinking, Kansas City 1 seed, they're in the championship game. Bengals, you could argue, depending on how that game would have played out, the tragedy, they were the 3 seed, but they could have been easily the 2 seed, right?
Yep.
You can't really... Philly's already in as the 1 seed. And if San Francisco wins, you're going to have basically all 1s and 2s. So the season sort of... Everything played out the way it probably should have, I guess. That we don't always see in football.
Well, except for, Cincinnati probably would have beaten Buffalo that game.
Yeah. And then they would have been the 2 seed. But obviously, the tragedy occurred, and it was a good thing they canceled that game. But, it's not like they were a distant 3rd seed. They were right there.
Yeah. Well, I've got a food moment.
Okay.
So I went to Eulalie, which is a Gone Smart restaurant who owns Casa San Stefano and the Colombian and all those other restaurants. He's a very good restaurateur.
Very good restaurateur, yes.
So we go to Eulalie, and I'm going to get a burger because they have great burgers, but I don't. I get black and red fish, which is like my New Orleans go-to. And it was very, very good. But the appetizer, Drago's in New Orleans is famous for char-grilled oysters.
Yes.
Eulalie had char-grilled oysters, so we had an order of char-grilled oysters, and they were outstanding. They were as good as Drago.
Nice.
So it was a really, really fun, really good lunch.
Oh, I guess in breaking news, Temple just upset Houston, 56-55.
Oh.
Yeah, the 12-9 Temple Owls knocked off the number 1 seed Houston.
That number 1 seed's fluid, isn't it?
It really is throughout the season, yes. But it was nice seeing Houston back in the spot because they haven't been back since Drexler and Akeem and all those guys, right? Or whoever it was they had back there.
They had a really good team last year.
Oh, okay. I must not have been paying attention.
It's been a while, but Kelvin Sampson, the old Oklahoma coach, is our coach now.
Yeah. And again, they weren't undefeated by any stretch. They'd already had 2 losses, or that now was their 2nd loss. So.
Well, my other food moment was the chocolate cheesecake from the Nuns in New York.
Yeah, that's a good cheesecake.
And I tweeted out, it's the best I've ever had.
I think I have noticed with our, we've spoken about Goldbelly before on this podcast. I think for whatever reason, the cheesecake and the pie, I think they lose the least amount in translation from eating it at the restaurant to eating it at my house.
I think that's fair.
Pizza, it knocks off at least 10% of every pizza you get from getting it at the store, It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
There's not much you can do about it. It can still be delicious and better than, a lot of the stuff you can get, but it's going to lose a little bit. But the cheesecake is, I don't think, I've never eaten there, but I can't imagine it'd be any better.
No, I mean, it comes frozen, you thaw it out, and it's great.
And then obviously that incredible apple pie, which is...
yes. The Elegant Farmer.
The Elegant Farmer. Very elegant, very farmy. Just fantastic overall.
Well, I guess I'll probably see the 4th quarter of the because we're going to get the games. The tip off of the game is at 6 Phoenix time.
Okay.
So I'll probably miss part of the 49ers Cowboys for sure, at least a half, probably 3 quarters. But I'll look forward to seeing that. I'm monitoring on my phone because I'm really looking forward to that. that game.
Well, the bummer for you, I think, is we haven't had a really good game this weekend. After last week's games being outstanding,
Yeah, you're right.
these games, I mean, Buffalo was never out of this game until probably now, but they were never like.
They were never in it, really in it either.
And that was the same with Kansas City, Jacksonville. Like Jacksonville had a couple times where they could have, gained that momentum. They just couldn't get over that hump. Whereas yesterday, and then Philly just stomped, just embarrassed the Giants.
I think we're going to have two good finals next week, so
Yeah, I'm.
we
pumped.
will see.
Very pumped. All right, well, I guess you probably got to get going.
All right, everybody. Watch the big game tonight, and we'll talk to you next week.
Howdy.